What if the fastest car on the highway in 1966 wasn't a muscle car? Picture this: red light. Next to you, a massive sedan. Subtle chrome, leather interior, a man in a suit behind the wheel. Nothing intimidating, nothing sporty, nothing that makes you suspicious. And when the light turns green, it vanishes. In the 1960s, while the world was watching Mustangs, GTOs, and Remys, Detroit is doing something far more interesting. It was hiding massive engines inside luxury cars, cars designed for executives, for company presidents, for men who didn't need to prove anything, but who, if they wanted to, could leave almost anyone behind. In this video, we're going to uncover the fastest American luxury cars of the 1960s. 1965, Buick Wildcat, 425. If this video is about luxury that didn't look dangerous, the Wildcat is the perfect definition of it. In 1965, the Buick Wildcat was not marketed as a radical car. It was elegant, large, comfortable, with that clean mid-decade design that projected stability and respect. Nothing screamed, "I'm fast." But under the hood lived the famous 425 cubic inch Schnellheadbauer 8 in its most powerful form. It delivered up to 360 horsepower in a brutally strong torque curve from low RPM. This wasn't an engine that needed to rev high. It pushed with steady force, quiet, relentless. 0 to 60 miles per hour could land in the low 7-second range. Very respectable numbers even against many lighter muscle cars. And here's what makes it interesting. It wasn't a rare model or a special edition. It was a luxury car you could buy at a Buick dealership. Spacious interior, power steering, comfortable suspension, everything you'd expect from an executive car. And yet, if someone got too confident at a red light, the Wildcat could deliver a serious surprise. Today, a well-preserved example typically ranges between $30,000 and $55,000, depending on condition and originality. It wasn't the most famous car of the decade. It wasn't the most aggressive, but it proved that 1960s luxury could be dangerously quick without looking like it. And what comes next is even more discreet. 1966 Chrysler 300. Now we step into something far more serious. Because if the Buick was elegant and quick, the Chrysler 300 was playing in a different league. By 1966, the 300 was no longer part of the famous letter series, but it remained a large, formal, clearly executive automobile, a sedan or hardtop built for buyers who wanted status without noise. Visually, it wasn't intimidating. Long, straight, solid. No graphics, no aggressive scoops, nothing that made it look dangerous. But under the hood, you could order the 440 TNT V8, delivering approximately 365 horsepower. Music, and here's the key point. The 440 wasn't just powerful on paper. It had massive torque that moved that full-size body with almost absurd ease. Despite its weight, it could run 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. Numbers that placed it very close to many Imagievan muscle cars. And it did all that with power steering, air conditioning, a spacious, refined interior, highway silence. This wasn't a street racing car, it was a highway weapon. Today, a well-preserved 1966 Chrysler 300 typically falls between $25,000 and $50,000, depending on condition and specification. But documented 440 cars always attract stronger interest. It wasn't a muscle car in disguise. It was a legitimate luxury machine hiding a war-grade engine. And what comes next is even quieter. 1967 Mercury Park Lane. If there's a car that perfectly represents the idea of a dangerous executive, this is it. The Park Lane was never the poster car. It wasn't youthful. It wasn't flashy. It was big, formal, almost invisible in the luxury traffic of the era. But in 1967, it could be equipped with the 428 FE V8. The same block powering far more aggressive Ford models. We're talking about roughly 345 horsepower. But what truly impressed was the torque. Massive, instant, perfect for moving a full-size body with an ease no one expected. Despite its size and weight, it could run 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6.8 to 7 seconds. Fully respectable numbers, even against many lighter muscle cars. And all of that came wrapped inside a car that offered a spacious interior with elegant finishes, soft suspension, serious sound insulation, an experience designed for cruising, not racing, but it was fast, very fast. This was the kind of car nobody paid attention to at a red light because it simply didn't look like a threat. Today, a well-preserved Mercury Park Lane 428 typically ranges between $22,000 and $45,000 depending on condition and engine documentation. Now, I want to know something. If you were sitting at a red light in 1967 and saw a Mercury Park Lane pull up next to you, would you underestimate it? Or now that you know what it was hiding, would you take it seriously? Tell me in the comments, because cars like this prove something important. The most dangerous speed is the kind that doesn't advertise itself. 1964, Oldsmobile 98. Now we move to something even more discreet. The 98 had absolutely nothing aggressive about its image. It was large, spacious, with elegant lines and long proportions that suggested comfort long before speed. This was the kind of car you'd associate with long highway trips, formal suits, and calm driving. But under that enormous hood, you could find the Rocket 394 Ci in V8 capable of producing up to 345 horsepower in its most powerful versions. And that completely changes the story because we're talking about a heavy, well-insulated, full-size luxury sedan capable of accelerating with unexpected authority. 0 to 60 miles per hour could land right around the 7-second mark. Impressive for a car of its size and mission. And the most interesting part is how it delivered that performance. No drama, no excessive noise, no sense of strain. It simply pushed forward. The Rocket 394 delivered strong, steady torque, ideal for open highways. It didn't need high revs or theatrics. This was mature power. Inside, it offered everything you'd expect from a true American luxury car. Wide, comfortable seats, refined finishes, power steering, and power brakes. A smooth, stable ride. It was built for comfort, but if the driver decided to, it could outrun many lighter cars. Today, a well-preserved Oldsmobile 98 typically falls between $20,000 and $40,000, depending on condition and specification. It wasn't a youthful icon. It wasn't a cover star. But it was one of the clearest examples of how 1960s luxury could be surprisingly quick without sacrificing elegance. 1968 Buick Electra 225. If the Oldsmobile was discreet, the Buick Electra 225 was outright majestic. Nicknamed the Deuce and a Quarter for its 225 in length. This car didn't look built to run. It looked built to float. It was enormous, spacious, with elegant lines and an almost diplomatic presence. The kind of car you'd imagine parked in front of a five-star hotel. Not launching from a red light, but in 1968 it could be equipped with the 430C in V8, producing up to 360 horsepower and more importantly brutal torque. That 430 didn't struggle and moved that gigantic body with almost absurd authority. Despite its size, the Electra could run 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 6.8 to 7 seconds. Shocking numbers for something that looked like an executive limousine. It did it without drama. Quiet, stable, with soft suspension and excellent isolation. This was the kind of car that could cruise at very high speeds for hours without stressing the driver. Inside, the Electra offered everything expected from a high-end Buick. Refined upholstery, massive interior space, light power steering, absolute comfort. But if someone underestimated it, they could be in for a surprise. Today, in a well-preserved Buick Electra, $225,430 typically ranges between $18,000 and $35,000 depending on condition and originality. 1969 Chrysler New Yorker. Now we enter serious territory because above all, the New Yorker was a status symbol. Big, formal, with straight lines and institutional presence. The kind of car you'd picture outside a corporate headquarters, not accelerating hard down a highway. But in 1969 it could be equipped with a 440 TNT V8, producing around 375 horsepower. And this is where the story completely changes. The 440 TNT wasn't a small engine pushed to its limit. It was a big block with massive torque capable of moving that huge body with almost insulting ease. 0 to 60 miles per hour could fall in the 6.5 to 7 second range, numbers that placed it very close to many lighter muscle cars, and it did all that inside a car that offered wide soft seats, extremely light steering, comfort-oriented suspension, isolation that erased outside noise. It was a missile in an executive suit. No stripes, no hood scoop, no aggressive name, just a 440 hiding beneath a serious design. Today, a well-preserved Chrysler New Yorker typically ranges between $20,000 and $40,000 depending on condition and documentation. Now let me ask you something. If you saw this massive New Yorker pulling up in 1969, would you consider it a real threat? Or would you assume it's just another big, comfortable cruiser? Tell me in the comments, because cars like this prove something important. 1960s luxury wasn't slow, it was strategic. 1966 AMC Ambassador. Now we lower the volume, but not the surprise. The Ambassador was never the car that dominated conversations. It wasn't the most prestigious, it didn't look the most powerful. It was elegant, well-proportioned, almost discreet within the American landscape. And that's exactly why it worked so well in this video. In 1966, it could be equipped with the 327 cubic inch V8, producing up to 270 horsepower. The number might not sound outrageous compared to the earlier 440s, but here's the key factor. Weight. The Ambassador wasn't as heavy as the full-size giants from Chrysler or Buick. It was more agile, more compact. That allowed it to run 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 7 seconds, the figure that put it dangerously close to many cars with far more aggressive reputations. And it did so while maintaining everything expected from a mid to upper luxury car of the 1960s. Comfortable interior, good material quality, comfort-oriented suspension, stable, refined driving manners. It wasn't loud, it wasn't theatrical. It was a kind of car nobody took too seriously until it accelerated. Today, a well-preserved AMC Ambassador 327 typically ranges between $18,000 and $35,000 depending on condition and specification. It's not a cover icon, it's not the most sought after, but within the idea of luxury, that didn't look dangerous. It remains one of the most authentic examples of the decade. 1965 Pontiac Bonneville. Here we raise the stakes again because the Bonneville had always been synonymous with size and elegance, but in 1965 it could become something far more serious. Visually, it was long and refined with clean lines and an almost aristocratic presence. It didn't look like a car built to run. It looked like a car built to impress in silence. But if the buyer knew what they were doing, they could order it with the 4-to-1 high-output V8. We're talking about up to 376 horsepower in a fully equipped luxury configuration. An elegant full size with muscle car territory power. 0 to 60 miles per hour could fall in the 6.5 to 7 second range. Extremely impressive for a large, heavy, comfort-oriented car. And here's what makes it especially interesting. The Bonneville wasn't a radical model, it wasn't the GTO, it wasn't the youthful performance car. It was Pontiac's executive machine. Spacious interior, quality materials, stable and comfortable ride, built for long-distance travel. But if someone underestimated it on the highway, the 4-to-1 could completely change their perception. Today, well-preserved Pontiac Bonneville 421 typically ranges between $25,000 and $50,000, depending on condition and engine documentation. It wasn't the most famous car of the decade, but within the idea of silent luxury with real power, it remains one of the strongest examples. 1968 Ford Ltd. Now, we move to something even more dangerous because it was completely invisible. The Limited was born as the most refined version in Ford's lineup. It was the corporate car, the manager's car, the serious car. Nothing in its design suggested aggression. Elegant grille, spacious interior with simulated wood trim, soft suspension, total focus on comfort. But in 1968, if the buyer checked the right box, they could get the 428 Cobra Jet or 428 FE V8s with figures around 335 to 345 horsepower, depending on configuration, and most importantly, brutal low-end torque. The LTD wasn't light, but that 428 moved it with unexpected authority. 0 to 60 miles per hour could drop to around 6.5 seconds. Fully respectable numbers, even against many well-known muscle cars. The difference is that it didn't put on a show. No stripes, no aggressive hood scoop, no youthful reputation. It was a big, comfortable car that could accelerate with shocking violence if the driver chose to. It was the perfect sleeper, quiet interior, light power steering, stable, high-speed highway manners. The kind of car that looked built for executive travel, but could leave more than a few competitors behind when the moment came. Today, a Ford Ltd 428 typically ranges between $20,000 and $45,000 depending on condition and engine documentation. It's not a poster card, it's not the most remembered, but within the concept of luxury that didn't look fast, it is one of the clearest examples of the entire decade. 1969 Cadillac DeVille. If there is one car that perfectly represents the idea of luxury that doesn't need to prove anything, it's this one. The Devil didn't look fast. It looked enormous, heavy, almost excessively comfortable. And that was exactly the deception. In 1969, Cadillac introduced the new 4072 in V8, a massive engine producing around 375 horsepower and more impressively brutal torque of roughly 525 pounds-feet. That completely changes the perspective. We're talking about a luxury sedan weighing well over 2 tons that could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. Numbers many respectable muscle cars barely matched. But the DeVille didn't accelerate with drama, it didn't shake. It didn't roar aggressively. It simply pushed forward with steady, silent, absolutely authoritative force. While other cars made a show of speed, the Cadillac did something far more intimidating. It made speed feel effortless. And that's the true essence of this car within the theme of the video. Inside it was practically a rolling living room, sofa-like seats, soft suspension, light power steering, and sound insulation that made even high speeds feel calm. You could be traveling very fast without feeling like you were going fast. In many ways, that's more dangerous than any hood scoop. Today, a well-preserved 1969 Cadillac DeVille with a 47 typically ranges between $25,000 and $50,000 depending on condition and originality. It was never a muscle car. It never tried to be, but it was one of the most formidable and underestimated luxury cars of its time. And there it is. Cars that didn't shout speed, but had it. Some pushed well beyond 350 horsepower. Others hid 427, or 428 or 440 engines beneath sober body, where many could accelerate like sports cars without ever losing their composure. And maybe that's what makes them so fascinating. They didn't need to prove anything. Now I want your opinion. If you had to choose one of these cars to drive today, which would it be? Would you go with the intimidating luxury of the Cadillac, the executive muscle of the Chrysler 300, or one of the most discreet sleepers on the list? Tell me in the comments, because that choice says a lot about how you understand real power. And if you enjoyed this journey through luxury that also knew how to run, you can't miss the video where we explore the other side of the story, the most luxurious American cars of the 1960s. There we focus on pure design, presence, and absolute elegance, not just speed. Because in the 1960s, luxury wasn't just one thing. It was style, it was prestige, and sometimes it was silent speed. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please smash that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss a future update. We've got a lot more exciting tech stories coming your way. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.